Good evening. This is the start of the collective committee meeting for October the 20th. And for those of you at home, thank you for your patience. I know we're starting 12 minutes late. Our economic development committee ran over, and you probably tuned in when there were some residents that were making comments. And at this point, what we're going to do is we're going to go to public input. We have it at the beginning of our meetings, and it is on any topic at all for 5 minutes. And this is per our ordinance section 220.21, B as in Bob, 1. Anyone from the public like to come forward to speak? This is your one and only time at this meeting. Seeing anybody on my left? No one? Seeing, we have someone? Okay, come on forward.
Didn't know it was going to be so soon.
Hello.
Gerald Phillips, Avon Lake resident, 20 years. Certified public accountant, real estate attorney, and a concerned citizen. To the residents of Avon Lake, I think we're going to play a game today. We're going to call Let's Make a Deal. And it's going to involve the Avon Lake Power Plant. So you can say this is behind door one. Behind door one, or deal number one, is the proposal where we use TIF. And TIF is a mechanism where tax dollars are diverted from taxing agencies, mainly the school, to pay for the improvements that a developer would normally put in a development. A standard development is the developer buys the land, puts in the infrastructure, the streets, the sewers, and when it gets done and improved, they deed it to the city. So the developer pays for the improvements in a normal situation. In the TIF, he doesn't. And in a normal situation, once that development is done, all the tax revenues on that improvement goes to the various tax agencies. City gets some, county gets some, major portion goes to the city. With the TIF, those tax revenues don't go to those tax agencies. They go to bonds, which are used to finance the improvements. And the collateral for the bonds is the future tax revenues. That's the collateral for those bondholders. So in essence, none of that money goes to the taxing agencies. This proposal, they're going to use out of the TIF the $60 million, 15 to buy the land, 15 for improvements, and the other 30 will go to the developer. Okay, so the loser is the school district, 60 million. Now they keep saying that, well, the city's buying the land free and they don't have to do it. That's right. They're not paying for it, but they're taking money from the school district to pay for it. That's the deal. So you have to agree whether or not a TIF. I'm not against using TIF, and I'll get to when you should use it. Deal number two. They're already proposing 1219 as a zoning overlay. And that zoning requires 20 acres of parkland. So if you go the zoning route, which will increase that value of the land, and they have to put in the 20 acres, we get that parkland for free. We don't have to pay the $15 million. And what happens is, when that improvement gets done, all $60 million will go to the school district. So potentially future tax revenues for school levies won't be there because they're not losing $60 million. Zoning is a tool, and all cities use it to put what they call entitlements. And entitlements means is you make that property more valuable by increasing its value by its highest and best use. And the highest and best use for that land is lakefront property, okay, with residential. That's what it is. And your zoning that you're proposing is 1,200 to 1,500 units. So those are the two deals, deal number one or deal number two. Ms. Fenderbosch says, well, it will provide economic development because it will provide residential. Well, she forgets about House Bill 920, which says as the value of the real estate goes up, the millage goes down, and they don't collect any more. So we don't get any more tax revenues when you do residential development. And the state legislature in the last 6 months have even made it tougher for school districts to get money under the 12 mil. So the school districts are being clamped down to even eliminate future revenues. So TIF was supposed to be based on a but-for test, but for the fact that the TIF in the money, that property would not be developed. That was the whole purpose of it. It was for blighted property in inner city type property. Avon Lake's not an inner city property. Mr. Shamir is right. You can't compare Avon Lake with anybody. Avon Lake is deemed to be a safest city. People want to do here. We don't need incentives to do residential. We don't. We got builders clamming all over to build in Avon Lake. So we don't need incentives. As far as the environmental, they're going to have to clean it up anyway. They already bought the property. And as far as uncertainty, there's no uncertainty just because you go the zoning route. You rezone that and you're going to have a lot of people interested, okay? And they'll get a vertical developer very easily.
Anyone else want to come up for any topic tonight?
William Zimmerman. So I'd like to talk about a variety of things. One of the first things I want to just mention is there was a candidates night recently done by junior PTA or something like that. And they had gave an opportunity for all of the candidates to speak. And the citizens of Avon Lake, I think you need to take into account one thing. And that's, can they tell you why they're qualified? Thought 2 or 3 of them stood out amongst the other ones. But I really wonder if they're qualified. That they'll stand up to the old guard, that they'll be willing to say no, that they'll move things forward and help our city get better. Now, I want to talk about stormwater manager, who is supposed to be Mr. Liskovich, public service director. Now, Ms. Fenderbosch has quoted 1060.02 several times in a discussion that we had, which designates the public works director as that stormwater manager. But from the way I read it, it says he can designate someone else to that position. I don't know if he has. I don't know if he ever did. And the illegal connection that occurred a couple years back on the property that ALERG was under discussions of purchasing. Avon Lake Regional Water was purchasing from ALERG, and this was done. So was there a conflict of interest then? Should that deal have never gone through? Questions I don't know the answers to, but I hope to find out shortly. So this weekend, because the weather was so nice, I went jet skiing with a couple friends. And we went on the other side of the power plant, on the water side. Very shallow water that day because the wind was out of the south. But there were sandbars all over the place. This area that people want to put in docks and they want to have boats and have access to is going to be dredged regularly. I think that that's going to be another concern that nobody's taken into account. I think there's a lot of other factors that still need to be considered as well. So, the 108-inch pipe that now has the water feeding to was running rather well. And this was before the rain that we received just the other day. I'm curious as to where it's all coming from. That side of the beach, which nobody really goes to anymore, you can't access easily. It's all closed off. But from the water, you can. So, I have another question or two in regards to what really happened with the stormwater stuff. And so I've been doing some digging, and I think that I may have an answer, but I can't be sure yet, so I can't tell you tonight. So let's go back to the land that the 15% of Avon Lake is already in park space. And the national average is 9.8. We're already 50% over. Why would we need more park space? What's going to make it better? As I indicated in my previous statements, the gentleman who works there on a daily basis says that Miller Road is underutilized, as it is. There's a handful of people that go down and fish on the pier, but people don't go and use the green space. And in this deal that we're putting together with ALERG, you want us to buy the land to maintain the green space that people aren't using. Doesn't make any sense. So again, please figure out what the candidates need to be to get your vote. Thank you for your time.
Anybody else come forward? Come on up. Just give us your name and the city you're from.
My name is Malachi Witt. I wasn't planning on coming in tonight, but this is an important topic. I'm a candidate for city council at large, and I am 1,000% against TIF use in Avon Lake. It's 100,000% unnecessary. This TIF that involves the CI plant, which was a foundation of the tax base here for 100 years, we're now talking about giving away that tax money for 30 years. 3 decades. For the last 100 years, that location has provided tax funding for the city. And there's residents I have talked to by walking through the neighborhoods, campaigning, that they've lived here for years and they can't even get their street paved. And yet we're talking about giving away $60 million? What are we talking about here? It's baffling. I'm a qualified candidate because we need to stop giving away our tax dollars. Let's take care of the people that live here, the people that made the choice to invest in buying their house, raising their family here. Let's start with maintaining our roads. Let's start with maintaining the infrastructure we already have. And then maybe if we have the luxury of bonus tax revenue, we can talk about starting to give away, 60 million. It just doesn't make any sense. And a lot of residents agree. My question is, when do I get to stop paying taxes? Why is it that we are constantly offering developers, commercial businesses to come in and not pay tax when the rest of us have always paid taxes and will always continue to pay taxes? And so I'm a qualified candidate because I'm here to represent the people that made the choice to choose Avon Lake, to buy their house here, to raise their family here. And they need a voice. They need a representative, not developers coming in from out of town. Because when they leave, we're still here. And we are the ones that have to deal with the consequences, the infrastructure costs, when they have already left town, made profit, and they're not paying any taxes for it. That's all I have to say. I'd love to have your vote on November 4th. I hope everyone comes out to vote. This is a critical point in our city's future. And thanks for listening.
Anybody else want to come forward on any topic for 5 minutes? Okay, if not, we are going to go forward. And because my name was mentioned in one of the comments, I would like to respond. I never said that this was going to be, and I was in favor of, a TIF for all residential. I simply asked the question of our consultant if he could explain if a residential TIF would be of use in part of this. I am, and on the record, I'm going to say it again, I am in favor of having mixed use at this property that we were talking about. I'm in favor of a TIF. Everyone pays tax who's there. The vertical developers coming in will be paying tax. It simply won't all be going into the same funds that it would normally. We're going to move forward. I'm sure more of the questions will be answered by our consultants. I'm going to turn this over to Economic Development Committee Chair Zach Arnold.
Thank you. I have several items on tonight's agenda. The first one is the power plant purchase agreement. This was just passed out of the Economic Development Committee 2-1 about 20 minutes ago. And we do have our consultants here. And Mr. Todd Davis, if you could please do a short presentation on, it gives kind of a high-level look at this purchase agreement. We've talked about this for the better of 2 years. We had an IDA passed about a year ago. There's been negotiations over the past year getting this done, and it will be on first reading next week. But I appreciate our consultants coming in tonight. Thank you.
Sure, my pleasure. Again, Todd Davis, Brownfield Redevelopment Attorney for the City of Avon Lake. I am here to give a brief overview with respect to what's before you in the context of the purchase agreement. But just to reframe it and to reset it and give some context for the goals going into the project, what were the transaction's goals? I mean, obviously, one of the major goals is to facilitate the largest economic development project in the history of Avon Lake, to enable a major mixed-use development project on a highly distressed brownfield site. I think people forget many times that there is blight in Avon Lake, that this power plant has been defunct for many years. It's got a lot of environmental complexity and development complexity, notwithstanding its outstanding location. So certainly it has potential, but it also has great warts that need to be fixed, resolved. And it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort, and it takes a lot of creativity and work. And from that perspective, I think it's incumbent upon the city to consider using the best available tools. Tax increment financing is one of those tools. The Ohio Voluntary Action Program is another one of those tools. We'll talk about those a little bit tonight. One of the other goals in the context of this project is to create one of the best lakefront parks in the entire state of Ohio. There's been some commentary I heard as we started this meeting that the contiguous park may be underutilized. I don't know. I don't have any sense as to whether the gentleman who was interviewed said that or didn't say it. I don't know what the utilization of the park is. All I know is that we've got a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to create one of the best parks in the state of Ohio through this redevelopment process. And that's one of the goals for this entire transaction. Also, with respect to eliminating blight and addressing the environmental issues associated with this piece of property, taking it through the Ohio Voluntary Action Program, remediating the site hand in hand in real time with ALERG is one of the goals for the project. And then finally, one of the goals that was stated at the beginning of our endeavor was the city didn't want to use its own pot of funding in order to accomplish these very significant goals on behalf of the city. So that's what this agreement has been structured in order to achieve. So what are the tools? I mentioned them briefly. I won't spend a lot of time on it, but the Ohio Voluntary Action Program, the Ohio VAP, is the state's brownfield redevelopment program. It's the tool that is used most often in the context of redeveloping complicated properties like this one. The major benefit by using this transaction structure is our own certified professional, Steve Gross, will be leading, working with and in coordination with ALERG, the investigation and the remediation of this property to definitively resolve historical environmental issues on the site. That is an outstanding benefit that we get from this deal structure. There was a statement made and I will say, well, of course, they got to clean it up in order to sell it. That may be so, but how long? For how many years is the property going to sit there? It's going to sit there for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years? Is that something that makes sense in the context? Is that consistent with what the city council's vision is? Without unlocking the value of this property, you would be pleased to have the property sit there as we try to figure out how to fill the gaps in this development process. I think that pursuing this structure is a major benefit in order to jumpstart this process and to move it along in an expeditious way. Using tax increment financing, again, one of the most widely used tools in the entire state of Ohio. There are approximately 1,850 active TIFs in the state of Ohio. It is a major economic development tool that we're utilizing in the context, or we hope to utilize in the context of this project. As I mentioned previously, City of Cleveland has just done a major TIF to unlock the value of a number of its vacant acres in the city and to spur up to $7.5 billion of new development in the City of Cleveland. If you're looking at some of the beneficiaries of that project, certainly Dan Gilbert, who's spearheading one of the major projects downtown. You could argue Dan Gilbert doesn't need any money to support his project, his major project. Dan Gilbert has all the resources anyone could possibly ever want. But the development is also trying to achieve an appropriate rate of return for the project. There's significant gaps and significant infrastructure that need to be addressed through that process. That's why you use TIF as an economic development tool. I think it is incorrect, and certainly Majid can address this a little bit later on. It's incorrect to say that the developer won't be paying taxes. The developer, as Council President Fenderbosch pointed out, the developer will continue to pay taxes. The school district will not lose the value of current taxes from a TIF. It's the increment that's being captured and plugged back into the project to unlock the value of this redevelopment opportunity. And importantly and critically, and as been pointed out by people who are for and against the use of TIF, ultimately there needs to be a deal that's reached that's acceptable to the city council, to the administration, and to the school district. And if those things don't happen, this deal will not move forward to closing. Let's go back to the history of the negotiation just to kind of set the context for this project. So this development agreement that's before City Council today stems from the interim development agreement that was passed by City Council on November 13th of 2024. I think the main structure of the agreement before you is consistent with the overarching goals of the interim development agreement. Per that interim development agreement, once the IDA was passed, it gave ALRG's opportunity, and their obligation was to provide historical environmental information with respect to this piece of property. They've done so. So we've had an insight with respect to the historical environmental due diligence that was performed. We know that there's a lot more environmental due diligence that will be performed, assuming that we can enter into this purchase agreement in connection with this piece of property. And we'll start that in earnest through Verdantis and Deegan and Associates. And again, just to reemphasize it, this deal is completely contingent on TIF financing. And that's a next phase and a next stage. And obviously there are a lot of interested parties, some for, some against. There'll be a lot of debate that needs to happen. I hope that there's a lot of education also that happens in connection with clarifying how TIF projects actually work and how they're funded. But certainly without the TIF, you're not going to unlock the redevelopment potential of this piece of property. You are going to have uncertainty in connection with attracting a future developer. My understanding right now, while ALRG has been working diligently to try to find a vertical developer on this piece of property. Because of the environmental uncertainty and some of the economic uncertainty and the substantial issues associated with this piece of property, that is no easy task. People are not crawling out of the woodwork to sign up to take over this project. This is a tough project, notwithstanding its amazing location. So, it takes very creative, well-capitalized vertical developers to come in and do this. This is not a no-brainer. And certainly, if people have vertical developers that are rushing to sign up without any incentives associated with this property, I'm sure ALC would love that list of developers as soon as possible. I think what it's going to take is for us collectively to roll up our sleeves, to use all the economic development tools that we have available to us as a community in order to unlock the value of this project. And that's what we've proposed through this purchase agreement. The other benefit of this agreement is it provides site control. Without site control, you can't apply for grants. As we've talked about historically, Lorain County Parks wanted to apply for a major grant to do improvements on this piece of property, was unable to because we don't have site control. This purchase agreement gives us site control through the process and enables us to, again, try to bring in additional sources of funding to mitigate any TIF that ultimately might be granted on this piece of property. But again, without the agreement, without the site control, we don't have the ability to go after those grants. And also importantly, the agreement allows our own certified professional to be in the process, in real time, working on the investigation, and coming up with the remediation necessary to address the environmental issues on this piece of property. As a private property owner, and notwithstanding what people think about timing, or of course they need to clean up the piece of property in order to sell it, there are a lot of different ways to do it. And there's timing. They could do it in phases. It could take 35 years to redevelop this property. I mean, who knows? Obviously, developers are incentivized to do as well economically as they possibly can do. What we're trying to do here is to do something that makes sense given the initial goals that we've outlined for the community, to try to meet those goals, to try to achieve all of those goals, again, without the city having to put substantial dollars behind this project. Again, the city would not have the opportunity to even review the environmental data on this piece of property without this purchase agreement in place. In terms of key issues and key terms associated with the property, the transition from the interim development agreement to the purchase agreement before you, purchase prices remain the same, $15 million or 25% of the TIF funds. We negotiated quite a bit regarding this term itself. We don't know, and we have to go through the underwriting process, which is a to-come issue with respect to this piece of property, with respect to how much TIF actually would be available and what can be financed, assuming that there's a vertical developer that's willing to stand behind the TIF. So maybe we can't get to a $15 million purchase price, and we'll have to propose something else in the future. I mean, I hope that we can, so that this doesn't become an issue, but if we don't, ALC has the opportunity to terminate the agreement if they don't get their $15 million worth of purchase price that we've agreed to. And we did work through the process. We hired an independent appraiser to look at the valuation of this piece of property. The $15 million purchase price was confirmed by Ridley Huber, one of the leading appraisal firms in the state of Ohio. So I know that there's been discussion about, well, what's the value of zoning? Obviously, we heard that going in, and the property, the highest and best use of the property, we certainly agree, is mixed use lakefront redevelopment. I don't think it's hard to argue that. The appraisal that was done by Lake County Metro Parks Lorraine County Metro Parks historically anticipated an industrial valuation and not a residential valuation. And there is a substantial benefit from a new zoning overlay if it were to be approved by City Council. But there is a substantial difference in valuation. I had nothing to do with that appraisal process. I don't know the appraiser. Nonetheless, I do know Ripley Huber. They're a go-to appraiser for many parties in the state of Ohio, and I think their reputation is as solid as it gets. In terms of development costs, nothing has changed. ALC has agreed to pay development costs, out-of-pocket costs for city attorneys and through environmental consultants as we move through this process, consistent with the goals of this transaction. On the environmental issue side, before closing, Steve Gross, as the certified professional, has to verify that the site meets applicable standards for public use as a park on this piece of property. If that doesn't happen, there will be no closing. That's a major value of this purchase agreement for this piece of property. You can remediate it without using the Ohio Voluntary Action Program. The Ohio VAP process is a much more expensive process. It is much more particular than other remedial approaches that don't use the Voluntary Action Program itself. ALC has agreed to comply with all of those stringent requirements and to actually let us lead it through the process with our own certified professional instead of just doing all the work themselves, then asking us to do our own significant due diligence process on this piece of property. Being able to do this in real time with the land developer is a huge benefit to the city. And again, something that would not happen but for this agreement and the structure that we've achieved. And from all accounts, based on the initial beginnings of a relationship between Verdontis, and Steve Gross, our certified professional, and the Verdontis team, and Deegan and Associates, as we contemplated in the IDA and as we hoped, they've really collaborated well in the context of environmental due diligence, although we're at the very early stages of that process. But we think it's a long process. It's going to take at least a year. So I want to emphasize this. We don't know exactly how long it's going to take. It's going to take as long as it takes to investigate and remediate the site, and we don't have an obligation to close until that NFA is actually issued. If it takes 2 years instead of 1 year, ALC can get out of the contract if it lasts more than a year. I doubt that if we're in the process and it takes longer because we find something that we didn't anticipate, that they would make that choice or that option. I think that as long as we're moving together through the process, we're the obvious buyer for this piece of property, for the park piece. But nonetheless, it's going to take a minimum of a year. And that's the way complicated brownfield projects in the state of Ohio or anywhere take that kind of time frame, even though there's been a lot of work to date. Again, as a contingency before closing, we have to have the NFA. The final soil cover we agreed to have placed as a post-closing item, assuming that there's TIF funding that is available to pay for that cost. We've contemplated, and the purchase agreement contemplates us, the city, getting multiple bids to make sure that we've got adequate funding as a line item in the TIF before we do that process. And so again, if we're not comfortable through this process, the city doesn't have to close. It's our absolute right to not close should we not feel comfortable with the transaction at the end of the day as we go through the process. One change from the interim development agreement to this purchase agreement, we have deferred some of the crushing of slabs and other issues on the site. While there's been a huge amount of demolition activity that has already occurred, there are certain slabs that we're not sure need to be removed in the context of a park redevelopment plan. So we're allowing those to remain in place until we have our own conceptual plan with respect to the way the redevelopment is going to look. Best practice in brownfield redevelopment is to integrate the remedy with the redevelopment. And so consequently, we thought that this was an appropriate way to address that. Indemnification. So based on the deal structure, we've got our own certified professional involved in the investigation, involved in the remediation process. What happens if something's missed and something goes wrong and we find something post-closing that needs to be addressed? We've set up a structure in this agreement that I think is really a gold standard approach in terms of protecting the city from environmental liabilities in connection with this piece of property. We have an indemnification that lasts for 18 months. ALERG has agreed to stand behind that indemnity with a financial insurance mechanism of at least $2 million backstopping that indemnification. They've also agreed to name us on the environmental insurance policy. Environmental insurance is a tool, and that's a $15 million policy that's specifically available to address environmental issues that are found through the redevelopment process. So that gives us an additional $15 million worth of potential comfort to protect us against any issues that are found during the process. And then worst case scenario, assuming this deal closes, remember that there's a $15 million pot of money that's available for park improvements, and we could use that funding if we needed to backstop all of the previous indemnification mechanisms. So again, from my perspective, having our own CP involved in the investigation, approving the remediation, that being vetted and approved by Ohio EPA, combined with environmental insurance, the guarantees, the additional funding, I just don't think it's going to get any better if we want to acquire this piece of property. So in conclusion, what are the benefits of this transaction? Well, there's a humongous economic development benefit by unlocking the value of this piece of property in the context of this portion of the city of Avon Lake, one of the biggest and best projects to come in the city of Avon Lake. Huge community benefit to create one of the biggest lakefront parks in the entire state of Ohio. And not just a piece of ground, but also a $15 million pot of money to improve the park, to do things that perhaps aren't available to be done on the contiguous piece of property that we have, and to integrate the park that we have on the other side of our site with this new park, and again, create one of the greatest lakefront parks in the state of Ohio. And then finally, from an environmental perspective, as I've talked about, there isn't a better way to approach the environmental issues on this piece of property. I think the structure insulates the city of Avon Lake from potential environmental liability. It also gives us a control position in the investigation and remediation process itself. So from my perspective, it really is a good deal for the city of Avon Lake. And with that, Majid, I don't know if there's anything you wanted to talk about in the context of the TIF process.
I could just.
Majid, would you come up there?
Sure. Thank you very much, Council President, members of Council, Majid Makhlouf, Bert Zochner. A couple of points I wanted to address, but I think before I get into them, I just wanted to make one thing very clear. I think to my role, to Todd's role, to Steve's role, is we are the city's consultants. I know when we're up here, we're presenting on a project, sometimes it can look back and forth, a discussion, which is a very healthy thing. But at the end of the day, we're not here to sell you on any deal. We're not selling anything. We are the city's consultants. You're entitled to our best judgment, and we stand here giving you our best analysis and our best judgment. You may agree with it, you may disagree with it, you can do whatever you want with it, but really what we're planning to do here and what we've done here from day one is always giving you our best judgment and our best analysis of the situation and what we have. Now, in terms
of the TIF, I think it's very critical to quickly talk a little bit about what TIF is. And people have been using the term, people always use the term TIF, but sometimes it's important to say what it stands for, right? Tax increment financing. And often people forget that middle word, increment. The way that a TIF works is the current real estate taxation of the property is not affected. What happens is there is an abatement of the increase that results directly as a result of the development on taxation. The increment part, that's you capture that incremental increase that results from the development, that but for the development would not exist. You capture that revenue. The city creates a fund, and the developer makes payments in lieu of taxation, pilots, payment in lieu of taxation. So as far as the developer is concerned in terms of the payment into the tax revenue, if you wish, they're making the same payment with or without the TIF on an annual basis after the TIF is adopted and while it's ongoing. The difference is, what do we do with that incremental increase that now we've abated? The payment that comes in pilots, it goes into the city fund. And at that point, what happens often, some cities, may use it and use other funds for developments, but what happens most of the time is that money is then monetized, is bonded to pay for current projects, and you use the future payments to service the debt for those costs. So that's typically when we talk about a TIF, what a TIF is. I think sometimes when we say it's lost taxation, if the development doesn't happen, there's no tax to lose. It's simply capturing the incremental increase that comes as a result of that development, directing it to the project for different purposes. The other component to this is the TIF that happens here needs the approval of the city, needs the approval of the school district, and obviously the ultimate property owner. So the school districts negotiate that TIF, right? So there's nothing that says that, just because you abate the taxes for 30 years at 100% doesn't mean that the pilots that come out of that abatement are 100% going toward that development. That's where the school district often negotiates. So the school district may negotiate for a portion of those pilots for whatever purpose. They may negotiate for leftover. You may end up generating more pilots than you anticipated, or than what you ended up needing, where that money goes. So the school district usually negotiates. That's the type of negotiation that happens with the school district. And that would be tax revenue that, but for the development, the school district would have never captured. Add to that, in this case, the complexity of a property that had already generated a significant loss in taxation, real estate taxation to the school district, that potentially a future development can provide an opportunity for the school district to capture some of it. And there's an end date, right? So it's whatever it is, it's a 10-year TIF, 20-year TIF, 30-year TIF. But we're talking about a project or projects usually that are expected to live much longer than the life of the TIF. Once we pass the life of the TIF, all that revenue that was pilots gets collected typically as tax revenue. So it comes back at the end of the TIF. It's not like it's gone in perpetuity for the life of the project. It's only collected, captured as a pilot during the life of the TIF. So that's why often when we speak of TIF as loss of taxation or loss of tax revenue, sometimes it's inaccurate. Again, there are many policy questions. People can like them, they can hate them, they make sense, they don't make sense. There's a lot of questions, but I think the answer that the Ohio legislature has had in Ohio for years and years now, and almost every state, not almost, I think every single state has some kind of a TIF structure in place. That's the system that we have in America, whether we like it or not. That's just the system that we have. The other point is the interim development agreement, and the city has been very clear from day one, without any wavering, that any debt that is financed through the TIF revenue, through the pilots, the city will not be putting its full faith and credit behind that TIF. So if there is any shortfall as a result of the pilots that come in, the city is not providing any guarantees with current, future tax revenue. The city is absolutely made it very clear that it will not put its full faith and credit behind that debt when that debt is issued. Nor do we anticipate the city itself to issue the debt. I think when they issue the debt, so we won't even act as an issuer. I think if they issue the debt, they may do it through the Port Authority, through some other facility, but the city itself will not be either issuing that TIF or putting its full faith and credit behind that TIF. The other point that I wanted to address with respect to TIFs is there are different kinds of taxation, right? So I think there's real estate taxation and there's income taxation. Cities often don't make much money. I mean, I don't mean to minimize it, but the city's revenue usually is not from the real estate taxation. It gets some real estate taxation, but generally the real estate taxation services, the schools have the biggest bulk of it. There's the libraries, there's the county, but the city usually does not. Municipalities in Ohio don't tend to live or survive off of the real estate taxation. Their bread and butter is more the income tax. And when you do a development of that size, you have the income tax that's generated from the temporary income tax that is generated from the construction jobs. You have the landlord in long term, if you have profitable properties and making income on those profitable properties, that's income tax. It's not affected by any TIF. You have the residents who would occupy those dwelling units, and they would be paying income tax into the city. To the extent that it's a multi-use development and there is more jobs on the site, ongoing permanent jobs, that's additional income tax that comes into the city. So I think sometimes you could simplify it by just thinking of the real property taxes and not keeping track of the other tax revenues that come from developments of this nature. I want to address something that is, quite frankly, not unique to this development or this property. It's present in every deal you ever make, which is there's always this internal concern of, are you leaving something on the table? Did the city get the best deal that it got here? Could you have held a little bit harder and gotten a better deal? I'm sure Allard is thinking the same thing. Could we have pushed harder and gotten a better deal? That feeling that if you ever do any transactional work always exists on both sides of nobody wants to leave anything on the table. Everybody's concerned about leaving something on the table. And again, I'm just speaking from experience and giving sort of a value judgment. You could accept it, reject it. I'm not urging the council to, but that often kills many deals unnecessarily. If you, not to be quiet, I mean, it's sort of, if you think of the Warren Buffett model, I don't mean, again, that's when he acquires companies, right? He's always accused of overpaying for them. But in his thought process is the additional time that I'm losing, is the additional investment that I'm losing while I'm negotiating this deal to secure some incremental, to secure a better deal now, worth it to me to lose all those years of investment in the future that I would be making out of that deal? When you talk about a development of the size that we're talking about, of the income taxation that would come, of the park that would come here, of the image of the city as a destination, as a place within the region. The 15 million number is a number, if you're going to negotiate this agreement voluntarily, that was the number that Allard at which was willing to make a deal. It was not willing to make a deal at 11, it was not willing to make a deal at 12, it was not willing to make a deal at 13. Could you push more? Could you take a harder position and say, you know what, we're not going to pay more than 10 million here? Probably you could. I don't know that you'll ever make the deal. And the better question is, if you made the deal, but it ended up delaying the potential environmental work, it ended up delaying what would come out of this in the long term, is the fear over leaving that incremental amount on the table that we didn't squeeze it out worth the loss in the long term that would come from not doing that deal? Again, that's a judgment call. That's a value judgment call. That is not a, I can only give you my best advice in terms of how we see it. But I urge you to think of that in the sense of that feeling is very powerful. I mean, I've lived it. I've seen it, of always fearing that you're leaving something on the table. And sometimes it's, if you step back for a little bit and think, hold it a second, what are we talking about? How long are the returns on an investment here? Is that additional squeeze worth the potential loss of what this can generate over that long duration? I spoke at the committee meeting, and I think I referenced the closure of the coal mines in the United Kingdom and other closures in the United States, and I think Councilman Shamir mentioned Dubai. And again, I don't know the propriety of any comparison on this. I mean, that's not the point of what I'm trying to say. I'm sure you don't mean to compare the Port of Cleveland to the Port of Dubai. I don't mean to compare Lake Erie to the waterways in Yorkshire. But the point that I was trying to make is these are real risks. The risk of a property remaining undeveloped for a long time is a real risk. It's not just a hypothetical. It's not like, if developing lakefront property was so easy, Cleveland would not be where it is today. We have a riverfront. We have a lake. I remember Jerry Phillips and I were involved in the Flats East Bank project on different ways. And we often used to say there's only one lake and one river. And we're talking about the intersection of both. That was it. And see what it took to develop the Flats East Bank. And years later, even some of the difficulties that still exist there. So I think it's by all means, I as Jerry knows, I was a resident of Bay Village for 12 years, and Gary knows, I love this part of Northeast Ohio. This is the treasure of Northeast Ohio. If I didn't have to be on 480 every day, I'd be here. But with all of that, with the safety that we have, with the benefits that we have, with the strong schools that we have, with the community that we have, I think it's always important to realize that development of a brownfield, no matter where it's located, is never easy. Never. No, wherever you are, even in Dubai. And I think it's important to realize that there is a question that the city had to make here. Do we want to make this happen voluntarily, or do we want to try to force it? And I think the policy decision that was made is we wanted to make this happen, and we wanted to do it in a voluntary fashion, in a cooperative fashion. And in the voluntary marketplace that we existed, that's the deal that was available. We could always try to squeeze more, but I don't know what the return on that is. So with that, I tend to my father was a priest, so I can stand up here and lecture forever, but I'll sit down. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you. I don't know, Steve, if you have any comments on the environmental.
Yeah, good evening, Steve Gross with Verdantis. I'm going to echo what Majid said, is that we are your consultant. We're the city's consultant. We have the city's best interest in mind as we look at either any part of this project, whether it's environmental, the law, the TIF stuff. That is our focus. And so with that, I just give you a quick overview. Our role in this project, now that we're getting started here, is to take a look at the environmental, the historic environmental, more recent environmental, and future environmental, evaluate this project under the Ohio Voluntary Action Program. I'm a certified professional under that. I've been doing this for 38 years, and this is an exciting project. And no matter what the land use is, but what we'll be doing is working closely with all the stakeholders. Currently, we're working with Deegan and Associates. We're building a relationship with them. We're working them on a regular basis to evaluate existing data, determine where we should take more data to fill in the data gaps. We'll be taking all that information, doing a deeper dive, and comparing that to property-specific standards. We will need to work very closely with Ohio EPA to develop those standards and make sure that they're acceptant of those, because there's not a generic standard for the end use that we want to do for the property. We'll be doing the phase 1, and that's a document review. We really won't start that work until after the PSA is signed, because we don't want to waste funds in doing something that may or may not be used. We'll work with Deegan to develop the phase 2, but Verdantis then, with our risk assessment team, will do the risk assessment, the property-specific risk assessment, and then be responsible for completing a no further action letter, which is really a document that is a compilation of all of the environmental work, any remedial work that's done, a demonstration of how the site meets applicable standards, and any kind of future operation and maintenance, if there is any, or reporting. And once that's done, we will present that NFA letter. I'll sign off on it as a certified professional. We'll present that letter to the city. The city then will advise us. We're assuming that they would want to have the certified professional send that to the director of Ohio EPA for a covenant not to sue, which is a environmental liability release for all the work that's done and presented within the phase, within the NFA letter itself. So as Todd mentioned, it's a long process. I mean, like I said, we are just getting started. We're a couple months into the real work. We have a lot of work to do over the next several months, 6 months, and as we go forward in this, there'll be a lot more information, a lot more details, and where we are and what remedial plans are being developed. And again, we'll be working with the stakeholders. That includes the city, Ohio EPA, and even the metro parks as we figure out, the end development plan. So that's where we are.
Thank you.
Do we have any further
I don't know.
questions?
I don't have any other questions.
Does anybody have any comments or questions up here? Mr. Shamir?
If anyone else would like to go first, I mean, I've got several, so if you want anyone else to go first, I'll stay behind.
I saw your hand up, that's why I came
Yeah.
to you. Anybody else to my left? Anybody else to my right? Go ahead, Mr. Shamir.
No, I want to make a comment that TIF is a mechanism to be utilized. I have no issues with it. And discussing strategies on redevelopment, the concept of Mr. Buffett was utilized on his movement into organizations, purchase of those companies, investment in those companies. There's a fundamental key component of what he does. I believe in Mr. Buffett. I mean, he is an investor to the T. Mm-hmm. But he understands his risk. He understands where his red lines are. And he makes all of those decisions based on a strategy. He doesn't get up one morning and say, great, today I'm going to buy Oxy because tomorrow Oxy is going to be worth more. What he does, he looks at the reserves, looks at the production, looks at technology that is out there so that there is a potential upside on those reservoirs. So when Mr. Buffett makes a decision, it's not that, well, we've done it always this way. No. He is doing an investment decision based on one fundamental thing, understanding the risk and mitigating that risk. Nobody wants to push until the point of breakage, but one wants to understand simply what does monetization of zoning mean? How is it valued? What is it that we want to do with this asset? What is the future? And how did we come up with the strategy? Because if you haven't come up with the strategy, you failed. I am sorry. I don't think that you can do anything unless you have a clarity on what the end game is and what you're willing to do and what you're willing to give up. It's a very fundamental means of doing business. Every day we make decisions. Do I want to buy this on sale? Do I want to wait? Will it come down or will it go up? Whether it's property, where is an asset, where is groceries? So making an assessment and asking questions is how we make decisions. As I am asking these questions, I have been asking them for 2 years, as council member almost. Actually 22 months. So in that 22 months, I still don't have an answer when it comes to what the strategy is. The only thing that I get is, okay, we'll get it to you, we're going to do it this way. Fundamentally, if there is a disagreement, my disagreement is not on the TIF or the development. My disagreement fundamentally sits on the point of what the strategy is and where we are going. You can't tell me that. So how do you expect me to then trust you to do what is best? I can't just take you on your word. And you may be the best person in doing what you're doing. But you still have to answer the question of what is the strategy and where are we trying to go? The concept of people have asked for access to a beach, I fully agree with it. But access to a beach at what cost? What is the strategy? When did we decide $15 million? Who decided $15 million? Was it stipulated by ALERG, you take $15 million or we're walking away? These are questions that need to be answered. The PSA, okay, the due diligence from what I remember was to start at the LOI signing. That's when the due diligence was to start. I may be mistaken, but that is what I remember. I have no issue with this development. I don't have an issue with people making profit. Profit is what we do. This is our way of life. But understanding what that profit is, how that strategy came about, is an essential component of what I'm looking for. I can't take it and say that, great, you have told me that this is the best, and I'm going to sit over here and do it 6 and 12 and say, okay, I agree. I will ask questions. I may be labeled as a fire thrower. I may be labeled as a lot of different things, as someone who could sink the deal. But I can tell you, I will continue to ask the question because it's my job. I was elected into this position to ask those questions. I will continue to ask them until I get a clear answer. You could give me a clear answer and I will then be on the same sheet of music as you and we'll walk through the path together. Simple. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shamir. Anybody else up here? Okay, now your intention, Mr. Arnold, is for this to be an ordinance?
Correct.
And you, can you take us through the process here?
So there'll be first reading next week, and then there'll be 2 more CCMs, and then 2 more readings. So we'll do a total of 3 readings. We'll be discussing it for the next 5 weeks.
Thank you, sir. Okay, and you have another topic before us?
Yeah, I would just say that at professionals, I appreciate you guys coming in. Some of you have long drives. Unless council needs them anymore, they're more than willing to head out.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for coming in. Thank you all of you for
Thank you.
coming in.
Next topic is, over the course of the last few years, we've utilized Todd Davis as a professional attorney and developer in his expertise. And we need to extend his contract as far as the dollar amount not to exceed $50,000. We talked about it at the Economic Development Committee meeting. It was passed 3-0, and it'll be up for first reading next week. And I'll defer to the mayor on this. Mayor, how quickly is this, where are we at as far as the dollars go? Do we have anything left?
I think unless there's further discussion, we'd like to get it passed as soon as possible so we can pay Mr. Davis's bills and be secure that we can continue his services moving forward.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Cos?
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. Mr. Arnold, did you mention, maybe I didn't hear it, but did you mention the reimbursement of those fees for the public?
I'll let the mayor
Okay.
talk about that.
So services relative to the purchase agreement we just discussed are reimbursed by Chara. They're not affected by this contract that we're looking at. This is above and beyond that, so this is any services that would not be reimbursed by Chara. So far, the majority of the work has been. We anticipate a lot of it would be, but there could be things that are not reimbursed. This contract that we'd be looking at now would take care of those.
Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you. And sir, if I could, if we get to the end of the year, we get into the next year, and this would be ongoing because this project is going to be ongoing. It's not just for those items that are not reimbursed. It could still be there as the bridge between when we pay and we get reimbursed. Is that correct? Correct. All right, that's the bridge. Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? So, Mr. Arnold, are you entertaining suspension of the rule emergency passage on the first read? Is that what I'm hearing?
I would say yes, unless anybody in the committee has any issues with that.
Okay, go ahead. The emergency passage. Okay, then you have another item, sir.
Yes. Next item is another topic we discussed in the Economic Development Committee meeting prior to this meeting. This includes the TIF financing in reference to a different type of TIF in its entirety. But this is in reference to the Sand Ridge Run and Harbor Crest area on the corner of 83 and Walker Road. This would include the development of Harbor Crest and Sand Ridge. And this is not a TIF that's going to affect any the school district or the JVS. There'll be no increase in taxes. This TIF would come into play before this. We talked about tax increment financing. So the point of this is to get this moving as quickly as possible so we can take advantage of the increment increment taxes that are levied against these new developments that come in at these two locations. And some of the things that this TIF could help out with, it would benefit both communities as well as the city, all residents of Avon Lake. But the TIF funds could be used for roadway improvements, pedestrian sidewalks, bike paths, street lights. I'm just looking at things that would pertain to it. Storm drainage improvements, parks within 1 mile. All these things can be used for this type of TIF financing. Like I said, this is nothing to do with the schools. They will get reimbursed for any type of TIFs that are used in this situation. And there would be no more property taxes to the homeowner as well. Hope that explains it. I didn't see any downside to this, other than the fact that we didn't get an actual amount, or I guess an estimate that we might be able to get. I know Councilman Shamir asked for that, so hopefully we can get some type of gauge of what type of income tax, I guess, TIF monies we would be able to use the next 30 years. I don't know if the mayor can speak to this some more.
And sir, this is, so that we could.
I'm sorry, 10 years, my bad.
If we could, this is called an incentive district TIF, and this is what I was referring to as the residential. It's very, very different than the other one. As you said, the schools are not going to be impacted from it. JVS is not going to be impacted from it. And we have to have it passed this year, this calendar year, in order for those developments that are going in now at their tax level to be included. If it doesn't go through this year, it's basically a non-issue. It's dead because it takes raw land, and what's going to be changing, that's different, that increment is what's going to go into the infrastructure build. And sir, you're, one more time, you want this to be a 3-read, and this is going to have a public hearing.
Correct. I think the public hearing will be on November
10th.
10th. Yes.
And so it's going to be October 27th, the first read, November 10th, the second read, and the third read will be December the 15th. And the reason that there's so much of a difference in time is that we're going by law. Ohio Revised Code tells us what we have to do, and this is the reason. Anybody else on this particular item? Anything else, Mr. Arnold? You have something else on your agenda?
Yes, I have one more item that was discussed at the Economic Development Committee meeting earlier today, is to appoint Austin Page, Planning and Zoning Manager, as Code Administrator for the city. Austin's been with the city for a number of years and has done a great job. And the administration felt and was conveyed to us that he would be the right person for this position. Thank you.
Anything further from any of our council people? And for the communities in information, a code administrator is an enforcer, okay? And what zoning does, they enforce codes. This was under the title with economic development, which is actually an attraction. So it didn't make sense to have the hammer with the attractor, like a push-pull. So by placing it with zoning, you have an enforcer with an enforcer. So this just makes perfect sense. Any further comment? And your intention for this is to be an ordinance for 3 readings, or how do you want this to be?
3 readings unless the administration needs it done sooner. Mayor?
3's fine.
3's fine.
Okay, anything else, sir? That's
Nope.
been added. Okay, we're gonna go on now to Finance Committee. Chair is Casey Zuber.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The first item we have is the budget appropriations. At the last committee meeting, I said that we would be going through some more transfers and budget adjustments. And it's included in your packet, the different ones, several for regional water, but also just moving some money around to different funds that we have to do based on some things from the auditor. And I think that if there's any other questions, I think the finance director will be able to address them. If you have any questions about the appropriation.
Thank you.
Or the
Anybody
transfer.
else have any comments? If not, I'm going to turn over to the finance director. Is there anything that you want to add, ma'am?
Just a couple other things to point out about these adjustments would be, there are a couple adjustments related to income tax. So our collections were up slightly this year, so there is a need to increase the administration fee that is paid to Rita. So in the amount of $90,000 for the remainder of the year is an estimate. And also, income tax refunds were higher this year, so we are rebudgeting that number. That does have a revenue offset piece, but a lot of that is based on the state refund of net profits, if you all remember how we entered this year with a $500,000 refund that had been made to one of our businesses here in town. And also there was a $60,000 increase based on the Manic ordinance that was passed last week. And that also has a revenue piece to that. So, any other questions?
Any questions for the finance director? Okay, Mr. Zuber, what is your intent with this?
I believe that we're going to have it to pass on first reading next week.
Okay, first reading, it'll be suspension of a rule, emergency passage. Okay, you have something else, number 2.
Yeah, the second item is the increase in the license plate fee. We had discussions in the finance committee, I think, for probably about 4 months at least in regards to increasing the license plate fee. In your packet is attached what a $5 increments increase in the fee would be. A $5 increment would be $116,000 that would be generated to the city. $10 would be $233,000. $15 would be $349,000, and a $20 increase would be generate $466,000. And this would only be used for road improvements that's specified by law. This was brought forward by myself just because of the fact that the city talks about the fact that they are in need of resources, especially for the road program itself, seeing that we had no money that we put forward on roads this year. Last year, I think it was $3 or $4 million. There's no expected road program for next year either at this point in time. I think that we'll have more discussions. So I brought this forward for some discussion. It was voted out of the committee to the collective committee meeting today. I think that we'll talk about it again at the finance committee meeting the first Monday in November. But we wanted to get it out and talk a little bit more about it. There were a lot of different things that the committee had talked about, possible bond sale for road improvements using this money. That was sort of disregarded as we had further discussions about it. It was more, I think, just to generate revenue for the city to do road programs. Now, the other thing that I wanted to add that is if City Council passed it, that this would not go into effect until January 1st of 2027. So, and also the City Council that would sit next year would also have the option to repeal it should they so choose to do that too. So we have a lot of different options, and it's one of those things I just wanted to put out there on the table to have discussion, and if council wants to move forward with the increase, we have the amounts of revenue that would be generated for it. And I would not look to probably put this on until November, and we would definitely go through three readings, the three-reading process, so that we get more input from the community, but also from city council members too. And from my standpoint, it's one of those things where when we really look at the situation of our roads, and I know Councilwoman Gentry has spoke up often about the issue that she has in her wards about roads. And I think the fact that we're going to go 2 years without any road and actual city dollars going to actual road improvement and repair is the reason that we're coming into and discussing this, because this would generate some revenue for us to be able to do some work on the roads.
Thank you. Anybody else have any comments? Mr. Cos?
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Zuber, do you have any data or information on the last time the amount was increased? It's $5 now, and I got a second part to this. It's $5 now. Do you know how long it's been since it's been, or how long it's been fixed at that? And then the second part is, do you know what some of the rates are from the surrounding region and where some of these proposals would fall in?
Mr. Zuber?
The last time that the city increased a fee was 1986, and that's when they put on the $5. As far as the other cities, I think that we could probably get that information and move forward, because I think that that's something else that we need to talk about too, where the other surrounding cities are. That's one of the things that we had not discussed before in the committee, but we can look, and that's why I wanted to throw it out tonight and talk about it at the collective committee meeting, but then we'll talk about it a little bit more in the finance committee next month.
Mr. Cos, you have another point?
Yeah, thank you. I'd appreciate that data. Just for reference, I'd like to know what the other communities around us, what their rates are. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Anybody else? Any comments? I think that it's important that the public knows that the numbers that Mr. Zuber quoted were per year. So for example, at the end of 20 years, the accumulation at $5 is 2.3 million. If it's $10, it's 4.6 million. If it's $15, it's 6.9 million. And if it's $20, it's 9.3 million that could go toward the roads. Thank you. Okay, so Mr. Zuber, I'm looking at the calendar. So you want to bring this into November. So it would be on the council calendar for November 10th for your first read, the 24th for your second read, and then December 8th for your third read.
Yeah, and we would bring it back to the collective committee meeting.
Of course.
On, I believe it's the 3rd, right?
Yes, sir, it is.
Yeah. We would talk about the finance committee meeting on the 3rd, and then talk about again the collective committee meeting.
Absolutely. I just wanted to get the readings and the voting. Thank you. Mr. Arnold, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, just wanted to say that, over the past couple of months, we've been talking about this. I'm not a huge fan of increasing it. I know it's $5 per registration, and that's, obviously that's not a lot of money in today's times we're in right now, but to me, it's the principle of it. I think that, an increase of $100,000 a year, I don't know, what's our annual budget?
About $104 million.
So if our budget's $104 million and we can bring in another 100,000, and I just don't think it, we've talked about some of the cost of these roads that in the millions that, I just don't think it's going to move the needle a lot. And I think it's, in my opinion, it's not worth hitting the residents up for another, I don't know. I just think you're nickel and diming everyone. And we've already got increases in our property taxes as it is, some substantial. And I don't think now's the right time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Okay, we're going to go on. You have something else, sir? Mr. Zuber?
Yeah. We have the tax rate resolution that has to go to the county by the end of October. And it's there with you, in front of you. And I believe this is because of some changes within the county. Is that correct, Beth, or no?
This is an annual confirmation back to the county regarding our tax rates. So it's done every year. Thank you.
So we would ask this to be passed on first reading next month, or next week, because it has to go to the county by the end of the month.
So I have a question for the finance director. Does this take into consideration the percentage that the county commissioners have reduced the property tax with or by?
No, it does not, because those are homestead tax and
Okay.
owner occupied, and those are considered refunds from the state.
Okay, so that's not going to affect this, because I
Correct.
see that we have general
Not
fund
this
and on.
document.
Okay,
Yes.
very good. And what is your intention, sir?
As I just stated, we need to pass it on emergency next week because it has to be to the county by the end
Oh,
of the month.
that's right, first reading, okay.
Yep.
Suspension of rule and emergency passage, okay. Anything else, sir, that you want to add?
No, that's it.
Okay, we go to Planning Commission. That's Council Representative Jeff Smith.
Thank you, Madam President. Is the overhead projector working that I can put the picture up there?
Yes.
All of council has the site picture in their packet. I just want to have it so folks at home can see it. Can we zoom in? Is that here?
That's actually at your end.
Yeah, zoom in on it.
Not on focus, go down further where it says
Oh,
zoom
that
out,
was
zoom in.
focus, yeah.
Yeah. Hit focus. There we go. Okay.
Now we got to focus.
You can't hit focus, it totally, there we go.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Rosmer. This is a rezoning of about 2.38 acres, and the site is right here. There is a building here that used to be Holben's. This is right, for everybody, this is Walker Road, this is Moore Road. This is where the zoning, where the Drug Mart Plaza is. And the property that's the 2 acres goes up past Chatham a little bit, but it's right in this area. Currently, it's zoned commercial, and he's asking to have 4 single-family resident lots there, which would be a nice transition off of this business across from these homes in particular, to put the 4 lots across here. Powder Maker Ditch is behind here. This is the development. I can't remember, it's named after the fellow Thomas, I think, built it. That's going way back into the memory fog. But I think that, this is something, we're gonna have a public hearing on this on October 27th, which is next Monday. I think that this planning commission passed this 7-0 without a whole lot of discussion. Like, this is commercial here. This property, I believe, is owned by the utilities department. I don't see a whole lot ever happening with that. So it's nice you have the woods here, you got that business, and then you're gonna have these homes right here, which will blend with what you have across the street and cuts off the commercial development going north in that particular spot. I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody has.
Anyone have any questions?
Seems like a pretty good situation.
Looking to my left? Looking to my right? Okay, so it's a B2, which is a general business district, and it's going to an R1A.
That's correct.
Single family, and typically the public is in favor of those things when it goes the other direction, from residential to business. We hear from a lot of people, but going from business to residential, we rarely have anyone that comes forward. Like you say, it's mirroring what's across the street. They're going to have 100-foot frontage on each of those 4 lots.
Okay, no one has any other questions, that's all I have. Thank you.
And your intention, sir, is to have how many readings?
My intention would be, since we're having the public hearing next week, at a council meeting. I think that is this a zoning change? It should go 3 readings.
Good job. Okay.
And if we probably will pass it as an emergency so that he can get going and start doing engineering and stuff over the winter and potentially be ready to put in some, hopefully some nice houses there.
Appreciate the detail.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
sir. Thank you very much. Okay, anything else from planning while you're up there?
Nothing.
Okay, we're gonna add something that came in, and with our new rules, we're able to either bring something to a committee or to CCM. Mr. Cause and Safety, do you want to bring us forward?
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. So I have an announcement to make that the long-awaited final report from the traffic study will be presented by, well, they were formerly Trans Systems. I'm sorry, I forget their current, their new name, but they were Trans Systems until just recently. They will be making their final report to members of City Council and the public on Monday, November the 17th, at a work session that we have scheduled for 7 p.m. So they'll be doing that final report. The next day is the Public Safety and Health Committee meeting on the 18th, which is the Tuesday. And I anticipate at that meeting, the committee will make a recommendation for council on where to go on the questions that have been put before us. Looking at the calendar, just to put it in your ear, Madam President, it would be an intention to go 3 full readings on whatever that recommendation is. So if the committee passed whatever it would be out of committee on the 18th, with the 24th being a first reading
Yes.
of that, I would want to have it passed on 3 full readings, and I think our last meeting is the 15th.
That's correct.
And I don't know if a special meeting may be needed on one of those dates.
No, sir, you're going to be okay, because your second reading is going to be on the 8th, and then on the 15th, we have a double meeting, and that'll be your third reading.
Great.
So there's no need for a special.
Great,
You're
perfect.
good.
Thank you very much.
And then you want it to be emergency passage?
Emergency passage, yeah, well, I mean, we'll have this discussion
Right.
as a part of the motion, but that would be my initial intent.
So we can set it up. Okay.
Correct, okay. Thank you.
Any comments? Yes, Mr. Zuber?
Mr. Cause, what time is that meeting going to be on the 18th?
Monday, that's going to be a work session before the
No, no.
CCM.
No, the 18th.
Oh, 5:30, I'm sorry. That'll be
5:30,
5:30, Public Safety and Health Committee meeting.
Okay.
And I failed to mention this as well, too. I've asked the company to get us that final report, meaning members of council, no later than that Friday before their presentation on Monday, so we at least have the Friday and the weekend and Monday during the day to review it prior to their final presentation.
Thank you. And I have a question for Mrs. Ross Marin. So I believe they will be delivering it to us digitally. David, did you, ask David first. Did you give them a cutoff time so that Mrs. Ross Marin would have time to copy it? Because I think members of council are going to want to see it.
Oh, no, that would go to all the members of council would get it digitally, but if you're talking any earlier than that,
And
I
to
can.
print it.
I'll have to print it.
Yeah.
I don't know the size of it.
Okay.
So let me find out some more from them and see which way, how big this thing is looking, or how we can accommodate people.
Or if there's some parts of it that could be printed.
Or we can just make it available online and they can view it
Correct,
that way as well.
correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll look into that.
Because
Thank you.
the public's going to want to be able to review it.
Absolutely,
That's
absolutely.
why I'm asking.
Yep.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Yes, sir, Mr. Smith.
Yeah, I don't know if Mr. Cost mentioned it or not, but we are not having our public safety meeting tomorrow night due to a lack of agenda items.
Oh, thank you for bringing that up, right, and that's on the website if anybody's watching at home. Anything else, Mr. Cos, with yours? Okay, we have some other business. First is going to be the mayor, and then I have something. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Madam President. I'm going to request a motion to have Larry Sansom approved as a member of the Community Reinvestment Area Housing Council. We currently have a vacancy. If you'll recall, Larry Sansom served as the chair of the ad hoc committee on boards and commissions. He did a fabulous job, very well organized, very thoughtful. He has a very diverse background in business leadership, community service, local governance. He has skills in strategic planning, financial management. So it fits very well within. He also has a volunteer history including he served on the Lorraine County Chamber of Commerce Board. So he has a business background, which will fit in with the CRA Council, which, for those of you out there, that deals with abatement issues within the city.
Thank you. Do you have any other openings in the CRA, sir?
There's a couple that require a quorum to fill by Ohio Revised Code, and there might be one other. I'll have to check to see if all those are ORC or otherwise.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Mayor? Any comments? Okay, mine's real quick. All of council members have received the updated, revised Avon Lake Council policies and procedures, and we put in there all the changes. If you turn to page 2, stating.
I just gave that to you.
Oh.
I didn't just, yeah.
Oh, so I'm the only one that has it.
And
Okay.
David.
You will receive these.
Yes.
So
I
the
wanted to make sure that
thank
that's what
you.
you wanted.
Yes, that's what I want. So the change on page 2, standing committee meetings, it says start at a time to be determined by committee members. That way it will be flexible. Okay? And you will be getting this digitally from Mrs. Ross Marin. We did make the typos, turning boards with an S and committees with an S. We made that change. And then on page 7, the 2 changes under the title of Public Input Guidelines on page 6. There's a bullet point that says consultants or invited guests, and we had that before. It says may present factual information and or respond to questions from members of council, the administration, or staff at any point during the meeting at the discretion of the presiding officer. And we added the next bullet point, and it reads, thank you, Mr. Costa, for bringing this up. Members of council, the administration, or staff may respond to questions or comments from the public at the discretion of the presiding officer. And that is it. I'm going to be asking for this to be put on as a motion. You all receive a full copy of it with the changes in yellow. Any comments to my left? Any comments to my right? Okay. At this point, then, we will go on to legislation. Second readings. Mr. Zuber, you are going to be asking for suspension of the rule on ordinance 25-156 and ordinance awarding a contract for comprehensive insurance coverage for the city of Avon Lake to Jackson Deacon and Associates and declaring an emergency. Is there any further comments, sir?
No.
Thank you. Mr. Arnold, you have ordinance number 25-161, second read, and ordinance authorizing the creation of a new chapter titled Short-Term Rental Properties within Title VI Building Regulations in Part 14 of the codified ordinances and declaring an emergency. Any further discussion, sir?
Nope.
Thank you. Mrs. Shamir, you have resolution. This is the second reading of the resolution number 25-162, an ordinance adopting the rules and regulations of the Avon Lake Community Television ALC-TV. Any additional comments on this one? Thank you, sir. Mr. Smith, you have ordinance number 25-166, ordinance to rezone permanent parcel number 0400006135-071 from a B2 General Business District to an R1A Single Family Resident District and declaring an emergency. That's what you presented tonight. Any further discussion?
Nothing further than what we discussed earlier.
Okay, public hearing, October the 27th. Thank you. Then it comes down to the first reads from what you heard tonight, and we're down to miscellaneous business and announcements. Anyone?
Actually, I do.
Sir, go ahead.
I had communication from a resident, but this is not the only discussion that's come up. There seems to be residents within Avon Lake that are feeding wildlife. And as a result, more wildlife are encroaching into neighbors' properties. And I think if we could, as part of our own initiatives on wildlife management, to maybe go back out and ensure that everybody understands that feeding wildlife is not permitted in the city of Avon Lake. I think that would be great.
Great. And I'm going, Mr. Rua is here. There is a video somewhere in the library with community TV. I believe it's ODNR that is going to be talking about that one point. And Mr. Shamir, I agree with you, because while I'm doing gardening in my backyard, they're coming up as close as Mr. Rua is to me now. And deer normally do not behave that way. They are, it's almost like somebody was getting ready, they wanted me to feed them. And of course, they've already eaten all my roses, so.
Well, that's correct. We do have PSA. We do have a PSA about feeding animals that we could share via the city's own channels. Happy to do that.
That would be great.
Sir,
And
go
I
ahead,
would
Mr.
just
Shamir.
like to make another note, just a note that it is mating season, so bucks are a lot more aggressive nowadays. You know, with myself, I walk my son to the bus stop to ensure that it's not as dangerous as it could be. So it is mating season, and please be a little more aware of your surroundings when it comes to the wildlife.
Right, and it's not just the deer that are mating,
Yeah.
okay. Anybody else on anything? Because the one thing that I wanted to mention, we experienced an outage, Mr. Mayor. We experienced an outage. I think this would be a good time, it'd be appropriate to talk about what we know about the 3,000 homes that were without power.
Sure, we had an outage, I believe it was Sunday night, correct?
Yesterday, right?
Oh,
Sunday.
yesterday, well, it was actually in the
That is Sunday.
afternoon. It affected 3,000 residents in the city. It was due to a tree that came down in the area of Crestview and Electric. Power was restored to most, I think, except for 19 within about an hour and a half. Again, it is believed to be weather-related. I also want to note that First Energy continues to work on their upgrade project, a multi-million-dollar project that's spanning several years to upgrade particularly our western port, David Costas Ward, upgrading much of the electrical grid in that area. And that continues, and there's been really no issues with that upgrade, but we're certainly counting the days until that's done.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, sir? Mr. Mayor? Okay, we have a need for an executive session. Mr. Cos?
I move that in compliance with Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22G1, council will adjourn to executive session to discuss the employment of a public employee and Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22G6 to discuss security matters.
Thank you. In the room, there will be all the elected officials, along with Mr. Mayor. Who else do you want in this room?
I think we're going to handle.
The law director?
Yes, Law Director, Rob Rua, and Ryan. And, yeah.
And our finance
Beth, I'm
director.
sorry.
Yes,
And Beth,
our finance
HR
director.
person.
I think there's two sections to this. So do you want them all here for the first section?
I'll have the HR Director come when we're completed with this one.
Okay, very good. So okay, very good. Thank you. And at this time, we're not going to be making any votes. When we reconvene back into our session, it will simply be for a roll call and an adjournment. Then we'll see you next week. Thank you, public. Have a good week.
I need to do a roll call.
I know we need to do a roll call before we can go, but go ahead.
Mr. Koss.
Yes.
Mr. Shamir.
Yes.
Mrs. Fenderbosh.
Yes.
Mr. Arnold.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Zuber.
Yes.
Thank you.